Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to Love Yourself Fiercely. I am beyond excited to welcome Liza Florida with us today. Not only is she a top 5 podcast host in global podcasts with the 8 billion podcast, she is also a professional real estate professional, and she's had a spiritual awakening in 2008 that she's going to share with us. But more than that, we believe we manifested each other in each other's lives. She is magical, and I cannot wait for you to hear her story. Liza, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you, Kelly, for having me. We did manifest this.
We
So
did.
it's the universe putting our forces together to say to the feminine audience that's listening, if we could do it, you absolutely can do it too.
I love it so much. So let's go back to 2008 and share with us a little bit what that felt like for you. And was that the turning point of self-love in your life?
It was absolutely that turning point for me. What I probably didn't know at the time was it was a spiritual awakening. But if for many of you guys, point of reference, if you guys are here in the United States, we were going through what you call the mortgage meltdown. And we were it was family business run by my mom, and we were killing it, in terms of real estate. And so was every other real estate agent that was out there. So if I could also give another point of reference, at that point, it was kind of like stated income, stated assets. If you could breathe, you could probably get a loan, and everyone and their mother was getting a loan. But what ended up happening is it would catch up with us. And unfortunately, we all experienced what you call the mortgage meltdown, which was like the biggest foreclosure market in probably real estate history here in the United States. And so as we were fortunate enough that my mother had been through several cycles of a market, and she pivoted us early. So she actually pivoted us in 2006 when not many people could see it. So what we did was, instead of going after, of course, clients that would list their home, we would end up going after the banks. And we landed 6 accounts, including Countrywide home loans, which is now Bank of America today. And we were getting business from the banks instead. So from every aspect, you would look at it from the outside, we were killing it as a business in real estate. But unfortunately, what was happening was I was in inner turmoil, because I was watching lots of families lose their homes, of course, and they were reaching out to us because they needed advice on what to do. But on top of that, I was in an inner turmoil because, as much as we were doing business for the banks, even we weren't an exception to the rule. We had over leveraged ourselves, bought lots of income property. And it became a decision of like, do you let your credit go, or do you let your liquid finances go? And you have to make that decision. So as much as we were good in that respect of being able to be fortunate enough to represent the banks, I was going through so much turmoil and losing everything. I was a single mom at the time. My son was 4 years old. And I said, is there more to life than just this whole thing I'm experiencing right now? And just like you, what you were saying is, it wasn't probably, there are those moments that just are so heavy. It wasn't a single point in that, it wasn't a day that I had this epiphany. It was a series of events that kept unfolding as everything started to it was one thing, right? If it wasn't like all of a sudden you default on one of your mortgages, and then now your credit cards are shot. It was just like the world was caving in on me. And so that brought me in essence to my knees and asking, like, is there more to life than this? And that ended up becoming the beginning of my journey of what I now, of course, see as a very spiritual one. So of course, it started with probably personal development classes. And just like you, what you were saying is you were absorbing every piece of either free material that you could get your hands on, because I didn't have money at the time. I was like literally, as much as we were making, we were pushing out. So it was really making ends meet and trying to figure it all out. And then, you look back and you're also understanding that in that thick of all of it, all of that energy that's coming at you with people that are also in turmoil. They're losing their homes. They can't pay their mortgage. So I understand it in its full capacity now, looking back, that all that energy was getting projected. But it was just, yeah, it was just that point where like everything had to start turning. And so I started doing personal development classes. I think that becomes one of the catalysts for people. Like what you're saying, it can come from so many avenues, but you're looking for that. You're looking for that little piece of light to take you and move you through. And sure enough, it did have that effect on me. So starting in 2008, like just a series of either material I came across or people that I came across, a personal development seminar, I slowly started to start changing things for myself. And then it would end up leading to a couple years later going to the Philippines, which is the motherland. So I am, I was born here in the United States, but my parents are Filipino. I would have a visit to the Philippines in 2010. And that literally was another eye-opening experience for me, because I could have, visiting a third world country, I could have easily be one of those children, but I did have different opportunities here in the United States. And so I decided like I wanted to be of service, but I didn't know exactly how. So I spent about 3 months there, which was the maximum that I could spend, because I still had a little son. And I volunteered and started doing things. But I came back here, I started working again in the mortgage and real estate industry. And there was that, there was still a lot of these ups and downs through a spiritual journey. But I would have to say that became the catalyst for it, my spiritual awakening. But it would still take about a good 10 to 12 years before I would actually step out onto the platform and really follow a calling, which is really right now the vehicle of 8 billion podcasts.
Yeah, I was going to say, and enter 8 billion podcasts. And I would love for you to share that, what does 8 billion mean to you? And how is that now the place that you really get to live into your passion?
Yes, I would love to share that. And thank you for asking, Kelly. So as many of you guys, if many of you guys are on a spiritual journey, you'll know it's an ever evolving journey. And sometimes it can have its real low. I mean, it can have its lows and highs. It can be like non-existent at times, depending on if you just, so for me, I got back into the real estate industry, like 2000, came back and started digging deep again in the trenches of like real estate and mortgage. And then even then there's a portion of my life that I left the business for a little bit, because I kind of had to find myself outside of the identity of the family business. So I went through that on top of relationship issues. I ended up losing my mother in 2018, excuse me. And then that became another series of like spiritual awakenings that I ended up having, excuse me. So I would say probably I lost my mother in August 2018, and then a whole year of like this whole mourning of like the lack of her physical presence. Somewhere around August 2019 to September 2019, I started experiencing some really like supernatural things, like angel numbers coming up and all this kind of stuff. And in the oddest way, I knew, and it was coming. I mean, like I would see, I mean, I'm just sharing an event because maybe the audience someone can relate. I mean, there was a series of 2 weeks I would not nonstop see angel numbers. And I said, something is shifting. It was just the universe's way of like literally screaming at me. Yeah. However, it would still take me down this road of the unfolding of the spiritual awakening. So for me, to the audience, one of the reasons that I'm probably on here with self-love was I did not know how to build healthy boundaries, especially in relationships with men. And so I would have a series of probably 7 to 8 years where I get into these short-term relationships, like that would last 4 to 6 months, and then they would just end. But what I was starting to realize was the universe kept presenting experiences to me over and over for me to finally look in the mirror and turn within and start noticing probably my lack of self-love. Mm-hmm. And so like I was telling you, September 2019, and then I ended up in not necessarily in a relationship with someone. I ended up actually, it was something that actually never even ended up in a relationship, but it forced me to turn within and start learning about self-love. And as I started, and that went from 2019 to the turn of 2020, mind you guys, also, we are at the cusp of this biggest thing that is changing everyone's life around the world. So not only is that happening, I'm having a spiritual awakening, the world is going into shutdown, but it was almost perfect timing because it allowed me to shut off all the noise, like the media and all this kind of stuff. As much as everyone had all their eyeballs glued on television, I turned within. I hired a meditation coach. I listened to myself. I would, again, I was going on all kinds of things that I could find, resources on YouTube about like self-love, even down to, like, I'm pretty sure we've got a lot of audience that also believes in tarot readings and all this kind of stuff, right? Yeah. And readers. And I just could not believe, like, it was literally just raining down on me. But in that time period, we went into shutdown. What was perfect was that it was quiet. And so it was me, I'm a single mom. So it was just me and my son in the house. And like I said, I dove deep into myself, like surrendered. And what I also realized in there was that I had this great love and passion for the Philippines, that I still wanted to be of service to them. And so I ended up, from a series of tuning in with myself through meditation, through all kinds of different things. Now I understand that they're downloads. I ended up saying yes to a calling that I had no clue what it was. I just said, God, for some reason, I had this imparting that I had a calling to fulfill. I didn't know exactly how it would look, but I said yes. So being that I was in real estate for so many years and had built so many business contacts, even outside of real estate, I thought, oh, clearly I'm going to go into building, business connections and all that kind of good stuff. Well, July of 2020 would come along, and what ended up happening is one day I was just like, okay, I heard it. I was just like, they're all like, you're gonna start, and I was like, well, what am I gonna do? I looked down on my phone, and there was a live streaming app that my friend in the Philippines started, and it blew up. And I said, I am not gonna live stream. There's no way I'm gonna live stream. I was like, that's like millennials. These are 20-year-olds. You know what I mean? Like I'm in my 40s, guys. So I was just like, there's no way. I'd be laughed at, right? And they said, no, that's what you're doing. So I said, okay. They said, you will know that's what you're, because of course, like, you're tuned into your body. And in some cases, you're tuned into your spirit guides. You will know that this is what we've asked you to do if you go on and do it and you find success in it. Well, sure enough, I think I did my first live stream in August, and I had all my family, friends jump on. I ended up having so many guests, one after the other. And for whatever reason, I could speak clearly for the first time in my life, because I was always really, Kelly, I was always really great in communication and like listening to people. But for some reason, up until that time, I couldn't quite articulate the words like I wanted to say that was happening inside my internal world. But it was just such a blessing. And then from that point forward, someone had, I think it was my cousin, asked me if I had thought about doing a podcast. And I said, no, I haven't thought about it. But sure enough, I decided to take this mission from what was like the Philippines, now global. And I started the 8 Billion podcast in October of 2020. And I'm finishing up season 3. But honestly, the mission has evolved. And the reason that I called it 8 billion was, in essence, we all at least have this understanding that we are all spiritual beings having a physical experience. And to my understanding, I knew the world was going to be different and never the same again. And so I said, it's a mission. I was like, whether I can fulfill like reaching out to 8 billion or at least die trying, right? That I knew that everyone had a light within them. And so then if I could if I could share their stories, if I could, if I could share whatever stories they had and showed everyone that we're all human beings, whether, whether you're just restarting out or you've had a career in an industry for 20, 30 years, there is something that's going to turn on within you. And so that became the mission of 8 billion, was really, truly to show everyone what their purpose is in life. And as time went on and I started meeting people, I came across different people who did like soul memory. And she said, "You're definitely on mission, Lisa." She goes, your mission truly is to bring and I'll say this openly because you do have a lot of spiritual people, is bringing the 5D down to the 3D, which is collapsing consciousness. And then she said that we don't know, we are here in a beautiful moment in time. I mean, we won't probably reach 5D in this lifetime, but we are the catalyst to making that happen. And so, and there are already many human beings that are embodying the 5D consciousness right now. So that became that became the whole. And what was crazy was I just wanted to share 8 billion different types of stories. Little did I know that that's what it would end up entailing. As time goes by, you meet these amazing people, just like what you're saying, this energetic field, just like, you feel so charged with certain people. And like every time, I'm telling you, Kelly, it has been amazing. I've manifested people into my life. They have not, I didn't go in search of them. I either met them through Instagram, through you know what I mean? And you just know you're meeting your soul family because we are all charging forward in this, in this evolution of human, of human growth.
Yeah. It's honestly, when we talk about spirituality and consciousness, on the podcast, we use some different language: self-trust, self-belief, intuition. It's all interconnected though, in terms of when we are in alignment, with ourself, our human self, and our spiritual self, our soul level. That is when the quantum field really is going to bring you what you need to continue the mission, to continue your evolution, to deepen connection with others who are on a similar path. And you and I firmly believe that's how we were connected. It was just fluke. And I'm so grateful that we were connected, because your mission is out of this world. And your success within that has been out of this world. And I believe we're just so similar in our desires of this lifetime. And so I'm grateful for our consciousness, our level of consciousness. But I selfishly would love for you to share how it is that 8 billion reached top 5%. What is it that you did to ensure that your growth was continual within exposure on the podcast?
It's interesting though. And I think, I've mentioned this on many times. Well, I got a phone call maybe, and when I received word of it reaching top 10% on listen notes of global podcasts, I think it was this late Saturday night, and it was one of my fellow podcasters, Mark Ledlow, who's the Fearless Mindset podcast. So Mark, if you're listening to this, called me late at night and I wasn't able to pick up, but he did message me and he goes, "I just wanted to call to congratulate you that you made the top 10% in global podcasts out of 2.4 million podcasts, globally." And I was like, "What?" And so I looked at it, and I think that on listen notes, if you guys go on listen notes and you enter 8 billion, you'll see like how they calculate what makes it top 10%. But what was interesting when I shared it with my platform, I said that I didn't pay attention to the downloads. I didn't pay attention to the numbers. In fact, what I really wanted to do was just reach out to the world with messaging. And I said, and now I know, I know this is hard for a lot of people that want the details, but in essence, when we talk, and I'm pretty sure Kelly talks about this a lot with her program, and to all of you guys out there as listeners, that it's about the feminine energy. And feminine energy comes from love. It comes from giving. It comes from this space of it's something you can't explain, but when you're in it, you know it. And when you're in it and in its full power, that capacity is just, your capacity to give and to receive and to manifest is super incredibly insane. And so that's what I was saying. Like, I wish I could have a program that tells you, you guys do this strategically and you guys do that. But I mean, like, for purposes of me and you, Kelly, I know we're still building our podcast and audience. It's just really going out there with the messaging that you have. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of your clients are that right now. They're standing in their feminine power in whatever business. They're wanting their voice to be heard, and they're doing that. And that's what I absolutely did. And on top of the fact that with every guest that I got on 8 billion, I stood there in each moment, just like right now, and I connected with them on such a sincere level that not only that was I trying to create messaging to help heal like my audience, they were healing me with every story that they told. And so that's, in essence, that's what it is. Again, as time goes by, maybe I'll have maybe a program of how I made it like that. I'm still baffled by the wonders of the universe. But honestly, when you give from that place of love and heart, you really cannot go wrong. That's what the human experience is. Like, right? In the grand scheme of things, right?
I love that you said some people don't want to hear this, but it is honestly the truth. It is how I built my platform as well. All of them really has been, openness in story, connectedness amongst struggle. That's how I built mine, and really just normalizing our difficulties as we navigate our human experience while tapping into our feminine power. And it's the feminine energy truly changes everything. And my guests know this. We talk about this all the time. And I love that you are reiterating that for them, that this doesn't just translate to a stronger marriage, a stronger self-love, a more connected relationship with friends, but also in our businesses. And in our missions. A lot of the guests, or a lot of the listeners on the Love Yourself Fiercely podcast, there are a lot of them that are not entrepreneurs. And so I think it's so important for us to recognize that everybody has a purpose and a passion on this planet, even if it's not monetized, right? It's about, how do you embody your desires? How do you embody your feminine energy? Or how do you embody your desires in feminine alignment? How do we tap into that? That's where the magic is. That's where the magnetism is. That's where joy lives. And you've done that. You've trusted your intuition and your nudges and your spirit guides along the way. And I love that about you.
Oh, thank you. I love that about you, because this is what's crazy to the audience. When you do find another feminine, or just even another human being that you connect, the language is just like, you just get it.
Yeah.
Because you've gone down that, and I know it's not easy going down these journeys, because it's very much like a lot of shedding of so many layers of trauma and pain, even generational pain. I mean, I've even done work with that. I've done quantum healing, hypnosis therapy. I've done everything, I was listening to YouTube readings, just anything to just connect with the universe. And finally, through a series of my Reiki healing and energy healing with my, in my meditation coach, the crown chakra opened up. And then people are like, how can you see your spirit guides? And it's just like I'm saying, like, sometimes gifts start opening up. Sometimes you might not see them. You might hear them, like, depending on, what the gift is. But you'll have those intuitive nudges. And it's only when you are like quiet with yourself do you start to understand where it's coming from. So it can come from so many different ways. It's your interpretation. It's our world. It's your human experience.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, it's been absolutely amazing.
And I'm going to try really hard to remember the 5 clairvoyances. So it's auditory, senses.
Yeah, clairaudient, clairsentient, clear. I was like,
there's the clairvoyant. I think that is
Hey, Saj. Welcome to the
I just opened that Pandora's box and I don't know them, but
I know. I was like, I'm looking.
I should know this from my level
5 clairs. I'm all like, I should know this too. We can pull this up. Hold on.
We're going to find it for you guys. We are going to find it. But as you're saying, you can see them. For me, I feel them. It's an intuitive pull always. It's my gut response, is my intuition, is my spiritual guidance. And it's just a feeling of that's what's right or that's what's not right. And when I was able to really trust that in fact was spiritual guidance, we talked about this for our interview on your podcast. That was really when I was able to come into alignment and listen to no, that is right in spite of fear, or no, that is wrong for me right now. Let's not take that avenue, but let's just listen to the pull. Let's listen to the guidance. And so for those listening who are like, I don't know what mine is, hopefully we can come up with them.
I have them right here. Do you want me to read them? Okay.
Yes.
So we have clairvoyance, which means clearly seeing. We have clairaudient, which means clearly hearing. Clairsentient, which means clearly feeling. That's probably you, Kelly.
Yeah.
Clair aliens, which means clear smelling. Hopefully I'm sorry, audience, if I didn't pronounce that right. Clairgustance, which means clear tasting. Claircognizance, which means clear knowing.
And so, when we talk about the tasting and the smelling, it's like so this is a fun story.
I was like, do you have a story on this?
Here we are. So my listeners know that last year we bought our dream home, which happens to be a 180-year-old home. And so it is a very old century home, Victorian, and we love it to death. And it has a history, of help. So there was a house in the middle of our house and the house next door, and there was a tunnel underground between the three houses, and the middle house that's no longer there was the help's house. And so that's where they would prepare the meals, and they would bring it down the tunnel underneath ground and bring it up into my house to the people who lived in my house.
Oh my gosh.
And so we were told before we moved in by previous owners, not the ones we bought from because they wanted to sell their house, but previous ones, that there are presents here, and that it is believed by previous owners, all the previous owners, that it's from some of the servants from the help house. And so they always come up from the basement. And when we talk about taste and smell, our dining room, it's a dining room now, but we believe it was probably like a smoking room, like a gentleman's room. Every night around 7:30, it smells like smoke in our dining room every night.
Insane. No, it's true. I have a girlfriend that bought a house. I think the lady actually passed in it, but she was known to be a smoker. And there was a time around maybe this time last year, she goes, Lisa, I could just smell cigarettes all over. Yeah.
And so, because I'm so spiritually connected, it does not freak me out.
Yeah.
And it's part of our experience as a family, right? I raised my children to be really tapped into their abilities as well. And so we just often will we say we're greeting the ghost. And so like the light in the basement will go on and off on its own, and we'll just say hello. And so that is what the smell and the taste are, that people who have that sense can really walk into a room and absorb spiritual scent from previous owners or different things. And then the taste is like, it's like when people say, I tasted perfume. I can taste my grandma's perfume. She's been long gone. That's that ability as well. So it's so interesting. But yes, our dining room, we believe, used to be a like library or gentleman's room, because that was so for the times that they would all gather after dinner and smoke cigars or whatever. But yeah, so that's our dining room.
The human experience is so amazing though. Like when you expand your thoughts and all possibilities, you'll start to understand. Like it was even when I lost my mom, I was talking to my cousin the next day, and then she was saying, she goes, what time did your mom pass? And I think it was around 8:30. And she goes, I just could smell like these. She goes, I can't even explain it. It smelled more beautiful than like roses. And then she goes, I went to all my plug-in outlets And she goes, everything was empty. And I said, yeah, that's around the time that my mom passed. But you know what I'm saying? It's just these abilities to be so tuned in with the universe. It's so beautiful because it's always sending you messaging.
Right. And it's beautiful. You know, I mentioned this a little bit on your podcast that like there's so much fear around healing or opening ourselves up to the spiritual realm, but it's also beautiful. Things that traditionally would scare us,
right?
We now embody so beautifully, you know, to be able to be connected to a different level, a different dimension with people we love from our past, with possibility and lineage and generational connection to our ancestors. Like it's wild what's possible in that experience when we allow ourselves to open to it. And everyone here knows that I call the feminine energy is like opening the flower. We just need to open our flower. So it's that same thing. It's like allowing ourselves to open to our spiritual guide is coming back to feminine alignment as well. It's in the feminine energy that we allow ourselves to open. And so I share a lot of different parts of my evolution for my interviews on this show, but the spiritual evolution of my connection was very, very transformational on my path as well. And I assume that's the same for you. It continues to deepen.
Oh, it has, absolutely. Yeah. It's, you know, and like, that's what I'm saying is it's ever evolving. Cause like I said, when I started the podcast, I knew I wanted to create a different platform. But then when I was just going back and forth with my girlfriend about what I was going to name it, I was like, well, there's 8,000, you know, I was like, there's 8 billion, excuse me, you know, human beings. I said, so there's in essence 8 billion stories. And then she goes, that's what we're going to call it. You know what I mean? And then we'll call it, you know, but of course, you know, there were so many different podcasts out there. I ended up calling it just 8 billion. But its mission and purpose is to help uncover and discover the purpose of everyone on this planet.
Which is incredible, which leads me to my next question. What is next for you? What is your next purpose?
I know this is amazing, you guys, because like I told you, as even the podcast just started evolving, I was just sharing stories. Then of course I tell you, like I came across an amazing person who I actually featured on season 3. So she's she's in my season 3. Her name is Liz Hayes, and she does this thing called soul memory. And so she connected me to my spirit guides, and they were pretty much saying, you know, I you know, in this human, you know, evolution, we all have karma to burn, right? So that's basically what we're trying to do, is burn either karma from this lifetime or other lifetimes. So she was saying, like, you know, you're going to have, you know, that's, you know, this first part of your journey was all about, you know, burning the first, like I think there was like 6 sets of karma that I need to burn. And so she was like, your spirit guides have said that it's burned. So now you get a 4-month intermission before you start act 2. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is October. But interestingly enough, right, I was recording the end of season 2, and I was struggling finding guests. And it was weird because I was working on the other back end of things, right? The rebranding and all this kind of stuff that I had not booked all my other guests. So I was just like, okay, I'm going to call season 2 short. And then I'm going to, you know, I'm going to start recording and, you know, at least batching it out. Right. So then I'm not in a hurry. I have it out. Well, sure enough, June came along, and all of a sudden like the momentum, just with a snap of a finger, I had all of these guests, and literally in 2 months, you guys, I recorded 2 seasons. I'm recorded it's crazy. Just like you, right?
Yeah.
You have, like, I think you just announced you have like 46 or 47.
47 interviews.
47. And I mean, it's not going to stop from there. And I've had people, I've had people come up to me, like just different people randomly, either out of the podcast. They were also healers. They just approached me. They just said, I have a gift, and I could tell you that this is just the beginning. So 8 billion podcast is going to keep going. We're going to keep doing season after season. Like I said, right now I'm I'm releasing once a week, but with the amount of guests that have been coming in, it might be twice a week. I would love for 8 billion to actually be something on top of just a podcast to go global into different countries. Now, I have some thoughts and downloads in my mind of what I think it's going to be, but I'm going to probably run this through Kelly, and then maybe we could do another podcast on it. But I'd love for it to be different. Like I said, it could be a platform that goes out and does other work, globally. I'd love for it to expand into documentaries. I'd love for it to expand into a book one day, but I can't start the book because I don't believe the story's done. But we'll see where this all goes. I mean, the sky's the limit, guys. But I want everyone to feel that energy in them, because that's really where your true power stands. You almost feel like you could do anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just to wrap that up, when we talk about alignment and we talk about joy and feminine, being tapped into our feminine desire, there is no limit. The sky's not even the limit. And you will find your passion and your purpose in that place, because I have sat in this seat now for 6 years doing so many different things that resemble the same. And every day is a beautiful adventure. And that's how I know I'm in alignment, right?
Yeah.
6 years and I'm still not tired, burnt out, over it. Like, I couldn't imagine having stayed in a job for that long.
Right? Because you're truly like supercharged. You're like in your own power. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Because it's passion filled, it's desire based, it's beautiful. I cannot wait to see what 8 billion becomes. I feel that it will be exceptional, and that it will evolve into its own little, not so little, worldwide brand though, right? There's certain things that just have that potential, and 8 billion feels like that to me. And so I'm so grateful that our paths have crossed, and I'm so grateful that you shared your evolution with us today. And I honestly am so excited to walk alongside you on this journey.
Oh no, thank you so much. I do want to add though, before we end this, another thing, and that's why I said I might talk about this offline with Kelly and maybe talk about it another time. In essence, guys, the big vision is that in my one body, I don't know if I can do 8 billion interviews, right? But right. But what I'm saying is the big vision truly is for it to be one day a time capsule, as the many generations, like, because this is what I'm saying. One day there's going to be a world or a planet Earth where we are just love, compassion. We're just divine beings. And so everything that we've done as humans here in this time, we've gone through the healing, we've shed it. This, in essence, is a time capsule that one day our future generations will be able to look back and say, that's how they lived. So that is the big ultimate dream. I've got to figure out how I'm going to make it happen. But, it won't be me always interviewing everyone, but maybe we can have people contributing to time capsules and just put it in a big information bank one day.
So cool. It's so cool. I'm obsessed with that piece of it. Everything we've ever done on this planet is a time capsule. And we talk about the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, like they were a lifetime ago. And my kids talk about the 1900s like it was 100 years ago. And who knows what the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years is going to bring. And I'm grateful for the work that we're all doing on this planet. I'm grateful for our ability to evolve as humanity and as women. And it's going to be amazing. But I have one last question for you that every one of my guests has to answer.
Of
it's
course.
my favorite. All the evolution that you've done, all the work that you've done, what is one limiting belief or false belief that continues to surface for you? And how do you navigate out of that mindset shift quicker than you did in the past?
Well, I think it's so crazy because I had the epiphany, excuse me. I had the epiphany while you were on my podcast, was in essence, and that's why I'm saying there's no accidents, is sometimes I'm afraid to be seen. And that's that next evolutionary step I'm ready to break through. And I was just telling Kelly offline that these last couple of weeks for me have been truly spiritually transformative. So even if I've done this and I'm here with, representing 8 billion and its mission, it is absolutely, that's what I'm saying. It's breaking free from those. It's wanting, not wanting to be seen. Am I afraid to be seen? Am I afraid to take this to the next level? But I'm going to do it, you guys. I'm going to stand in my feminine energy. I'm going to work with Kelly and we're going to take this all the way, right?
Yes, we are. And we could just go on forever. I'm going to say this one last thing for the women watching, women listening, watching, whatever, however you're consuming this. It is so safe to be who you are. It is safe to be seen. It is safe to be held in your power. It is safe to be held in your emotion. It is safe for us as women to be who we truly are. And it is a wound I think we all struggle with at different levels, in different capacities. We have been so conditioned to believe that women are to be somewhat small, and we are here collectively rising to be the greatest, most expansive versions of ourselves. And so the fear of being seen is one we all experience, and it is one that Liza and I are gonna, we're just gonna smash that out of the park.
Yeah, we are
take
gonna
you guys on a wild ride.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much for being here. Where can my people find you? Because I know they're going to want to consume all that you have to offer and all that the podcast has to offer.
Oh, thank you so much. So everyone, if you would like to find me, you can find me on Instagram, of course. Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn under Liza Florida. That's Liza, and then Florida, like the state. Of course, I also have a Facebook page for 8 billion. It would be under 8 billion project, and also on Instagram at 8 billion project. And then I also have a website, lizaflorida.com, and a website for the podcast, 8billionproject.com.
And we will link all of that in the show notes, so you guys can just click and head on over and consume all of the magic that Liza has in this world. To my listeners, as always, I hope you love yourself fiercely and fully today and every day, and we will see you on the next one.